Dormitabis, Chapter 3, Part 2.
Thou shalt refer to us as Princess Luna Solaris. were one of the two co-rulers of the kingdom many know as Equestria. Back before our banishment, we were known as the Goddess of the Moon and the Guardian of Dreams.
She turned her hand up, gesturing to the colored moon.
Our job was to raise and lower the moon so that our sister could do the same with the sun. Through this cycle, we bring about day and nights for our kingdom and others.
Wait, you raise and lower the sun and moon? That's both really weird and kinda cool. Luna tilted her head again.
Thou is an ancient species upon this planet, dear human, but thou cannot tell us that thou hasn't been around before Equestria was founded.
Well, that's the thing, I don't remember where or even when I'm from. I know my age, what I look like, and a lot of other things about where I'm from, but... He grunted as he tried and failed once more to recount any closer memories. It's like something's keeping me from remembering my more personal memories. The memories that tell me who I am. I know for a fact that where I come from, there aren't any like you, Princess.
Any like us? What dost thou inquire?
The inventor merely shrugged back. I could be alluding to anything at this point. I'm so frustrated, confused, and scared shitless that I wasn't even making sense when I woke up after all of that. He turned and threw his arms out, as Luna's face became more serious and firm, her mind calculating what she's being told and trying to piece anything about it together, as if it were evidence or a piece of a bigger puzzle. I mean, for crying out loud, I don't even have a single clue what this kingdom is. I was just told this name seconds ago, right after I was also privy to the fact that I'm carrying some sort of goddamn hate sludge in my body. He groaned, as the said sludge slithered from his back, crawling over his clothes before disappearing back into him. Luna, watching this, shook her head.
Thou mustn't let thy anger control your state of mind, human. Compared to it and how much of it you have, the dark magic can easily contort your urges, your mind's basic carnal desires. After all, it has done so with us.
The human turned back to Luna as she walked towards him, being slow as she didn't want to alarm or provoke him.
For 1,000 years we have been trapped in the moon, isolated from the world because of our own rage and jealousy overpowering us. It's changed us, morphed our mind into something darker, just as it did with you. It sought for its own goal in our mind as well, a hunger for fame, for recognition. Unlike thou, we were only so spiteful to generate but just a drop of the ghastly amorphous magic my sister and her subjects call venom.
She took his hands into her own.
But thou hast freed us, human. Even if unintentionally, we are forever grateful for your actions in our last encounter. The darkness no longer lives with us, but now swims within your bloodstream. Thus we have approached thou in thine dreams to speak with thee.
The human noted how Luna's speech seemed to change in subtle ways between old and modern. He guessed in the day that she's been back, she's already grew accustomed to using words like you instead of thou on occasions. Why would you want to speak with me, Princess? If I'm really this monster, then why would you want to approach me, knowing the risk of either being devoured or given back that darkness, this venom? She gave a short giggle in return.
Dear human, thou cannot transfer such harmful magic mentally. While it is true that our protected states can still feel mental anguish from these magical tantabi, our bodies must be within the appropriate distance to transfer the magic.
She released his hands, bringing hers around behind her and shifting her wings uncomfortably.
And as for our reasons to confront you, we have come for 2 reasons. We wish to extend our friendship to thee.
Friendship? She nodded.
Aside from myself, there are no others who are out of their elements. Much less we both do not know Equestria as it is today. It would be beneficial to bond with one another by learning the ways of this new culture together, no?
She twiddled her thumbs before clearing her throat, looking less like a princess now and more like a shy Pegasus the human saved while within this venom thing that she kept referring to.
In other words, we have come to make peace between our sex and our species, if that makes any sense to thou.
The inventor kept his long, confused stare centered on the lunar entity for some time before he shook his head. The first thing we're gonna do is get you acquainted with modern English.
Equus?
Whatever. Deal? She beamed as her wings spread in joy.
Thy term shall be accepted, dear human. Dost thou have a name that we can call you?
Not really. I don't really remember that either. Why don't you just call me... He thought back onto himself in the present. Without the costume, he could vaguely remember some more instinctual parts about himself. Common knowledge that came with experience from a time and place sealed away behind that headache-inducing force. He was good with gadgets, inventions that he could make by simply putting 2 simple items right down to the tiniest bit of scrap together. The same can be said with mixing drinks together with the strange purple vials that he found in his torn blazer upon walking up in Zecora's hut. Thinking on this, he came up with an alias that's been hinted at his occupation throughout this venture into the unknown. Inventor. Just, for right now, call me the Inventor. She nodded, fluttering up into the air happily. It hadn't been no more than a few hours since her return, and she's already found a friend to call her own. Granted, her sister wanted him captured, and she felt the human posed too much of a danger to modern equestrian society. And while she is right, Luna can aid the Inventor in controlling who to target and lock the hunger of the venom suit on. After all, letting it run rampant will ensure she and Celeste get thrice the scrolls about monster attacks than they do right now. The Inventor watched her float and giddily dance around the room, noting how childish she's being while also keeping a regal and graceful posture while doing it. It was almost like she was prancing. Oh, right, ponies. Shaking his head as he took a seat on the couch, the eager princess landed on the other across the coffee table.
Shall we begin the lessons, Fair Inventor?
The Inventor, feeling more relaxed and comfortable around this mare over than the others, let some of his snarky personality show. As long as it gets you to stop referring to yourself as we, then yes. Almost instantly, the Lunar Princess buzzed with a pout.
Do you not respect the royal we? It is tradition to speak and address ourselves as such, and to use this much volume when addressing our subjects!
The Inventor felt the wind slam against his face as the couch toppled over. Oh shit! He pushed himself over, getting himself back up before pointing at her. Okay, lower the volume first of all, that's way too much.
Too much? I do not understand.
What? He pointed to the couch. What do you mean you don't understand? You tipped over the couch on the first try! She pouted at him again as he chuckled, his hands on his knees as he recuperated. Grabbing the couch from behind, he threw it back up. Alright, let's try this again.
Oh dear.
Zecora glanced over her notes as she flipped the pages of the old book, biting her lip as she delved deeper and deeper into the logs and findings of the scientist's notes from long ago. Having had the book on venom ever since it came out, the knowledge of the bestial slime came almost instantly to Zecora. She knew of its corruption factor, what it can do, what it wants out of each and every host, and most importantly, how powerful it was. And while there was a case later reported that Nightmare Moon, the entity that was said to be vanquished recently, held a small amount of venom after generating it, she pales in comparison to the human. In every case, only a drop or two was made, as ponies were normally such docile and friendly creatures. She could expect a piner more from a dragon or a scorned griffin. However, the findings all stated that the incidents back then and the incident with Nightmare Moon all held traces of venom that was very, very faint. But the human? The amount of the liquid magic that he holds can fill up a gallon container, and that was the best case scenario. Never in the history books on this creature, nor in the research that was publicized, was there ever a reaction like the one that had occurred with a human. She hadn't seen the monster itself, but rumors around Ponyville and even a picture taken by a photographer going through town showed Zecora just how big and how lethal this incarnation was. And it wasn't pretty. Not by a long shot. Stepping away from the book, she turned back to the full vial of the hate sludge. Picking it up and giving it a light shake, it took exception and lunged at the glass, trying to break through. Frowning, she knew it would be of no use to study this matter. It was too volatile, too unstable. Only the human could ever hope to tame this vile blackness long enough to recede it. Unlike her own spirit, his was strong enough to become the dominant will in the symbiotic relationship, even if he's driven by a ceaseless magical hunger. Pouring a specific amount of other potions into her cauldron, Zecora boiled it until the concoction turned a bright orange, and sizzled with enough heat to pass off as magma, or heavens forbid, unfiltered lava. Holding the vial up, she glared into the glass before dropping it into the large dome of steel.
This dark matter is too dangerous for study, for the results of testing further will be quite bloody.
Watching it as it melted within the searing brew she mixed into being, she let out a defeated sigh.
Only a will as strong as an ox can control such a deadly thing. I hope in his mission to do so that his gentle nature will not hang by a string.
As she stepped away from the cauldron, she made her way across the room to clean up her utensils, closing everything down for the night to get some well-deserved rest. As she turned away from the human, she failed to notice when the sludge had been burned to nothing in the lava-like potion in the large pot. He twitched. You see? Here. You say it like this, and with a level volume too. Do that too much and you'll scare away anyone else who approaches you by notoriety alone. Luna leaned over the table, glancing to where the Inventor was pointing to. Squinting her eyes to read the sentence, she was so focused that she didn't see her new friends twitch. As for the Inventor, he suddenly couldn't move, or more or less he could. What the? His body just wouldn't follow his commands. With his arm flying up, he not only smacked Luna, but threw her through the air, making her hit the podium between the living room and the kitchen. She gagged as she hit the ground, looking up as she spotted her new friend approaching her.
You hit... You would strike your new friend?
The inventor looked horrified, not only because he hit Luna hard enough to make her bleed out the nose and down the side of her head, but by the fact that he couldn't move himself. Something else had control over his arms and legs.
That wasn't me, Luna,
He choked on his breath as the princess could barely see. Just past him, the tendrils that she bore witness to, and the venom creature ensnaring his arms, his legs, his torso, and the back of his head.
Luna, I can't move. What's going on?
The Princess of Night quickly stood up, seeing the face of the demon within his heart.
Do not worry, new friend. I will help you.
That was a lie. She knew in her current state she couldn't do anything to aid him. In body and mind, he was too powerful for her, even as Nightmare Moon. But for him, for their friendship, she had to try. Reaching forward quickly, she aimed to magically chop the tendril on his right arm. The inventor strafed to the side, avoiding her swing and looking to the side to avoid the rounding envelope's magic. Taking her extended arm, he pushed his hand into her chest and shoved her backwards violently, making her crack the counter and bounce her back forward. Grunting at the pain in her back, Luna grasped the top counter and shot her legs towards the human, aiming for the tendril stuck to the back of his head. She gasped when he leaned backwards, dodging with a limbo and taking her legs before she could retract them. Twisting her over onto her stomach, she was slammed to the wall as attached to, before being thrown over into the kitchen. Whatever had control over the inventor moved him through the doorway. He could no longer do anything but stare and speak, horrified that he was hurting the first connection, the first companion that he's made in this world.
Okay, Luna, we can figure this out, just...
The force shoved him forward towards the collapsed mare, picking her up by her still physical mane and smashing her face into the corner of the other side of the podium.
Oh, god damn.
The inventor did a double take behind him as his body yanked her mane back, ripping her from the podium and sending her crashing into the cabinets, breaking the doors and dropping a few plates out of them.
Holy what the fuck?
He was forced forwards again, picking up plates and glasses along the way and shattering them upside her head as she tried to get up. On the fourth plate, she fell to the floor, slipping on the broken shards. Taking a step back unwillingly, he could see her with the moonlight cast over the room. The fur on her face and the sides of her head were completely drenched in red. Her Roman-styled white dress was stained with her blood, and he could see that he'd broken a bone in the frontal area of her skull. Even a fucking rib was popping out. Luna opened an eye, looking up at him as he gulped, looking down at her with shock and horror. She knew that he wasn't doing this. She couldn't blame him. He'll be forgiven for what happens tonight. Still, she needs to act, lest her dream self be killed, and then she would be thrown out of his mental space. The inventor subtly shook his head, as he saw her try to get back up.
Oh god, no. Luna, stay down, please, don't get up. Stay down, princess!
His words were unheeded and ignored, as the princess rose to her feet, grabbing the only thing that she could use to cut her for the tendrils. Taking up a kitchen knife, she took a swing and managed to cut the tendril holding his left arm. But its influence allowed it to heal almost immediately, retaining control as the other hand grasped her wrist and turned it. Feeling a crack in her elbow, she let out a cry, as the knife dropped into the inventor's other hand and went right into her shoulder. Both parties in the streamscape screamed out, either in pain or in shock as the inventor's blade dug into the blue pony's flesh, twisting past bone and shearing away at her tendons.
Jesus Christ!
He watched as Luna staggered back into the living room. Holding her shoulder as she tried to pull the knife out. She gasped again when her friend's hand took the blade's handle and ripped it out in the most unclean and painful way. He kicked her down to her knees and put the blade to her mouth. Before she could do anything else, his knee pressed onto her back and the knife cut into her mouth and up, taking the front part of her face. In that instance of death, she awoke. Celestia's eyes shot open the moment she heard the loudest candlelight voice she'd ever experienced, both before and after her sister's banishment. Sitting up her gold-colored nightgown, she looked towards her sister's chambers, then quickly threw the covers away. Not caring for her attire nor any of her regal wares, she sprinted to her little sister's room, where multiple guards were gathering around.
Out of my way! Clear the area!
The guards' mares did as they were told, making way for Celestia as she slammed open Luna's doors. What she saw made her blood run cold.
Get my sister to the clinic!
She stomped her foot into the floor when they weren't on it the second after the command was given.
Now!
What a great start to a beautiful friendship. Though I am curious if most of those injuries actually carried out of the dream world. Either that or maybe she's just having a seizure or something. Anywho, let's get on to our glorious donators. Top donators: TacoCat598, Peter Coulthard, J Tinman, Darkside, and Only One Thing. Zar630, Raiden, Narwhals, Black Moonheart, Pastel Skies, Austin Rollins, Crazy Killer 557, Stu Hex, Will, Omicron Lyrae, Chris, Michael Taylor and more, Fierce Pug, Dosbo, Delta Omega, Jack Hadge, Rinseth9852, Madman Stan, Leslie Prickett, Drake Lovedragon, Hunter Norman, Stephen Bingham, Line Guy 12, Sorcerer Constantine, Hud Zaza, Convair, and many more fantastic people. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and live life to the fullest.